Welcome to Statistically Speaking, a CK Pharma Solutions podcast where Kay
and Caroline.
In each episode, we bring you conversations with industry leaders from pharma, biotech, and CROs.
Together, we explore market insights, career advice, and the latest trends shaping the life sciences industry. Get ready for discussions that inspire, inform, and help you navigate the ever-evolving world of life sciences. This is Statistically Speaking, navigating the world of life sciences.
On today's episode of Statistically Speaking, the podcast, we are joined by the incredible Dr. Ilfra Loher, who is a director of biostatistics at ClinChoice. She has over 10 years of experience in the industry, and we are so excited to have her on the podcast. Dr. Ilfra, thank you so much for being on our podcast, Statistically Speaking. We're so excited to have you here. I know our network is going to be so excited to hear from you. So I guess we can just start off from the very top. If you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey within biostatistics.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me on here. I'm very delighted to be there. I've been a biostatistician now for over 20 years. Started out with my love for math. I always loved mathematics, and I always wanted to be applied to the health field. And I always wanted to find out how I could use my math skills to be part of a team that was going to help problems. It seemed that biostatistics really allowed me to fulfill my dream. And so basically, that's really how I got into biostatistics. I first majored in math, and then I went on to graduate school and studied biostatistics. And, for most of my career, I've been working with either CROs or pharma, and I've really enjoyed it.
I know you've been in the industry for a long time. I know me and you first probably connected back in 2016, maybe 17. So I know you've been in the industry quite some time, and it's always good to have someone like you. I know it's been, we connect in regards to different positions and just be able to kind of help each other in this market. So what are some of the biggest trends in biostatistics that you're seeing in the life sciences industry today?
There are definitely some big trends, in comparison to when I first started. And I don't mean to sound like I'm very old, but, the use of AI and machine learning, for example, this is very huge right now in the industry. We're able to do so much more with machine learning and AI. And I think that is one of the areas that's really exploding in the industry right now. Machine learning, for example, and AI, they could allow us to utilize big data. You do a lot of the crunching, while the statistician is able to focus more on the whys, maybe focus some more on some more innovative statistical modeling, communicating more with teams and working more in a strategic manner. So definitely, machine learning AIs are definitely something I think that's really exploding in the industry right now. Another area is real world evidence. Currently, we're seeing that clinical trials are being approved with the use of real world evidence data. That's huge. I think being able to see how the drug is performing in real life, not just in clinical trials, provides useful insight into how a drug is really performing. And so the use of real world evidence definitely is a trend I see that's increasing more, especially in the use of clinical trials and drug approvals. Also, in terms of statistical methodologies, statistics is always going to be statistics, math is math, but we improve. And I believe that one should always keep learning. And so there are a lot more tools and statistical methodologies being implemented. For example, adaptive designs, very important, and it's always known that it's important and critical, but it's being perhaps more used in the industry right now. The ability to be able to make some changes during the clinical trial and see what information the data is presenting and how maybe it's affecting the patients and tweak it, maybe the sample size, maybe tweak it so that you get more information, and having the flexibility to do that, I think is also very important and definitely impacting clinical trials as well. Maybe the use of Bayesian technologies, knowing information, having prior information and using that to kind of direct how the clinical trial is performed, I think is another important aspect as well.
And is it, obviously, as a director of biostatistics and have been in the market for for quite some time now. Is there anything that you're using, either you're using or your team is using at the moment that you're like, okay, I didn't have this a couple years ago that I'm finding really helpful and it's actually helping my team or helping me on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that I can definitely mention is the use of R programming, right? When I first started the industry, it was SAS, and SAS was the gold standard. That was the only software that the FDA had approved that we could use to analyze data from clinical trials. Right now, we're seeing studies, drugs being approved, which were done solely in R. That is amazing. R is a free software. And so a lot of small biotech companies utilizing R to do their analysis. And in our company, we are also we have an R team, and we are also capable of using R to run clinical trials. So definitely, that's one area that I see that when I first started didn't exist as much, but now definitely is. And more so also other programming languages, right, like Python. That's also something that perhaps the programming team would be able to speak more on, but it's always beneficial for a statistician to be able to know more than one programming language. And so Python has a lot of advantages. It allows one to work with huge data sets and has a little bit more flexibility. So that's something that's available now that wasn't available when I first started.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned R, because when I first started recruitment, that was not a question I would ask people in my pre-screens. It was always, do you have SAS? Let's talk about SAS. R was like a second thing. Like, oh, you have R, great. That wasn't something that was, spoken about, but SAS was just the main thing. So it was so interesting to see this change and going into R. I think that's definitely a new thing in the market for sure.
How do you see the role of biostatistics evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, especially with new technologies, as you mentioned, like AI and machine learning?
I think, a number of ways. First of all, thinking about theoretical ways, right? We constant learners. You have to continue learning in the field of biostatistics and keeping up with all the latest trends. So that's an area that I think that's impacting the change in biostatistics. Definitely the use of AI. The more that we can utilize AI, it allows us then to have a more strategic role. And I think right now, biostatisticians have always had a strategic role, but I think we'll be able to focus more so in these areas, developing new models, new statistical models, and working more as a team in a collaborative way and explaining why. It's explaining the results from a model which was obtained from AI or machine learning, and explaining the why to a team of people. I think our roles are going to be more dependent or leaning more in that direction as we use more of the machine learning and AI. And I think that in a sense, if it's implemented correctly, we could perhaps take on more studies and be involved in more projects, because we would not be involved in the day-to-day crunching and programming, but rather reviewing and observing and educating the team on what we're seeing and why.
Absolutely. I mean, just so interesting to hear from your perspective, from biostatistics, how AI machine learning is going to affect that. This is a conversation we have across biometrics with clinical data, medical coding, with data management, statistical programming, and everyone's talking about it. And just like you mentioned, it's here to help us and to take on those day-to-day tasks. So absolutely excited for that to become, part of our day-to-day in biostatistics.
Yeah. And Ilfra, I know when I first started doing biostatistics, one of the things that I would ask is your experience with CDISC. And now CDISC was, I think, introduced in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I think it was 1997. And a lot of people before that were not trained on it. So they had no idea about CDISC. They were just like, I don't have the experience. I know how to do the job, but I just don't have the CDISC. Do you think AI and machine learning is going to be something that's going to be similar to that, where people just don't know about it, weren't trained on it, so now they're going to be caught in this limbo where they're like, I don't know how this is going to go for me?
Absolutely. And it's very critical that biostatisticians keep up with their skills, with industry trends for that reason. I don't believe that anyone could possibly get hired or survive in the industry if they did not know status, or, it's non-negotiable, it's the standard that we follow. And so it's crucial, I believe, that we keep up with industry trends in order to, be successful and make the right impact.
And on that, are there any emerging methodologies or tools in biostatistics that you think will be significant, that will significantly change how clinical trials are designed or analyzed?
Yeah, I think, maybe the use of Bayesian statistics, use of Monte Carlo methods, definitely. But I think in terms of the tools, it really what's going to help us impact these tools or use these tools is still going back to the use of machine learning. And for example, working machine learning so could allow us to, in the stratification of model of patients, for example, you could perhaps find out if a particular drug is working better with a certain subgroup of people. And then it could allow you to gain information and tailor more to certain people. And, it allows you the flexibility in your clinical trial. And so what I see is that along with not just statistical tools, but the ability to use these tools from AI or machine learning, and allowing us to then look at the data in a little bit more of a detective way and realize the trends that it's showing us, thus improving the clinical trials for the right people. Sometimes, we may hear that certain drugs may not work for a certain subgroup of people and we don't know why. I think now with these tools that we have, it's changing. That, for some kinds of drugs, for example, they're able to look at the genes and say, oh, because of this, and, this treatment is going to work better in comparison to another treatment. So that's the advantage that we have. And that's what we have now, I believe, and that's helping us in the industry. And, in terms of statistical tools, I mean, it all boils down to, how is it going to be used and what information it's going to tell.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important that, companies and biostatisticians really embrace this to ultimately get to the goal of bringing drugs, to patients that need it.
Now, I think moving on to a topic that is very hot, and I know as a director of biostatistics, one of your main thing or one of your responsibilities is hiring people into your teams. So how has hiring in biostatistics evolved in the past few years? Are there any skills that are now higher in demand versus, maybe 5 years ago?
I definitely think that in addition to having a strong theoretical background, statistical background, one of the things that I definitely look for is soft skills, the ability to communicate effectively, the ability to work on a team, the ability to be proactive, and, being part of the solution, not waiting on someone to solve something for you, but going out, taking the initiative and solving it. And I think, you can gauge some of these by how someone may not know of a particular question asked, but how they decide to say they don't know, right? So, if someone says, I don't know, I'm not sure, but here's what I would do. I would perhaps go onto the FDA's website and research it. I would speak with a colleague. That tells you that they're not just going to be complacent as opposed to, I'm not sure, and then leaving it at that. So definitely looking for people who are, proactive and can communicate effectively. And not just people who are strong statistically, because you can train statistics, but some things like, communication and being naturally proactive, these are skills that I believe are essential. And that helps make a good statistician. That's very much needed. I think also, in addition to skills, programming skills, I think it's very important that biostatisticians are able to program well in SAS. We are responsible for ensuring that the results are accurate. And the way to do that is to independently validate the results. And so it's important that they know SAS. It's also important that they know R. It's important that they are able to flexible. Data science is something that, helps kind of, in some aspects, blurs the line between statistics, because the skills from both are very much needed. Being able to visualize data, you work with big, huge data sets, and of course, statistical knowledge. And so someone who perhaps took some data science courses and, understood how data scientists work and can, utilize these skills into their statistics day-to-day life, I think that's an essential. That's something that I would look for. And I do look for as an interviewer.
Yeah, I think you're actually the second hiring manager this week that I've spoken to that said proactive, that word. Like, someone needs to be proactive. Someone needs to be able to kind of see the problem before I see it and be able to fix it. And
Absolutely.
I think a lot of candidates, when we kind of get them ready for interviews, a lot of the things that we train them for is that soft skills. Those questions are going to come up. You are going to be asked those questions. So you need to be kind of ready to answer those questions. And a lot of people are just ready to answer technical questions.
Exactly.
But in the market that we are right now, you need to stand out. And there is a lot of people in the market, and you need to be able to answer those soft skills. And a resume is going to get you through the door, but a resume will not get you the position. You need to do well in an interview, and you need to kind of be able to kind of speak for what you've done and how you've been proactive in your roles and be able to give examples. And I think that element of giving examples is what people kind of forget to do. So it's a bit like we have to remind them, like, giving an answer without an example doesn't put the bow on everything. You need that little bow. And I think that's the most important thing. And when you look at a resume, Ilfra, I know, you probably get hundreds of resumes. So when you're looking at resumes, what resume, let's say there's two kind of very similar resumes. I know you mentioned data science, but what else do you look for? Is like, I know education has become such a big thing where people are looking for PhDs a little bit more than they used to. So is that, something that you look for, or is there anything else that you look for in a resume?
Definitely more, because like you just mentioned, a lot of people have PhDs, master's degrees. So it's not just education, but, especially in someone who's been in the field for a while, then I look to see if they have any success, any success achievements that they want to showcase. Were they part of a team where, that they saw a job from start to begin and through submission, and the submission was successful? What did they do that really benefited their team, and so that they can list it as a success or an achievement? So that's something that I pay attention to. And also, the types of groups that they belong to. Are they part of statistical organizations? Are they part of other organizations that where they can meet other people, like-minded people, and grow in their field and network? I mean, all of these, I think, kind of gives a big picture of the person, of the individual, and then helps them to stand out.
One thing me and Carolyn have been talking about this week is motivations. I feel like a lot of candidates feel like they don't need to have a motivation. I'm just looking for a role, and that should be enough for them. Like, if a hiring manager asks me why I'm looking, I'm just going to say because I'm looking. And we train candidates, like, you can't just say you're just looking, or I just want a higher title, I just want more money. And I know Caroline did a post on this earlier this week on LinkedIn, but when you're asking those questions regarding motivations, like, why are you looking? That's a very reasonable question. Everyone asks that. What are you looking for when it comes to that? Are you okay if someone says, oh, I'm just looking for a higher title?
No, not at all. No, I'd want to see that they have actually taken the time to research the company that they're applying to. I'd like to see if they took the time to understand the pipeline that the company has and how they feel that they could contribute. I'm looking for passion. I'm looking for people who are passionate. And passionate, you can't fake it. You know. So it's more than a title. It's more than just a job. It's showing how they can contribute, right, and be part of a team to help with the success of that company. That's what I'm looking for.
As the industry continues to evolve, from your perspective, do you see any gaps in talent within biostatistics? And if so, where do you think the industry needs to focus its efforts in developing future talent?
I wouldn't say gaps, but I do have suggestions on what I think can be done. I think perhaps companies, and maybe there are companies who are doing that, but we do have some very good schools, very good universities that are putting out some very qualified students. I think it would be good to universities and pharmaceutical companies, the CROs, work together to help train students in real life scenarios. For example, students may be theoretically strong, but they may not be as strong in application. And the way in which you become good in application is by applying the knowledge that you've learned. So, having the opportunity to work on a project, a real life clinical trial project, having the opportunity to maybe do an internship, and that internship doesn't have to be paid. I know that, everyone, starting out, money is very important. But when I first started my career, I volunteered. I think that's a good way to get your foot in the door with minimal risk. You're volunteering, the company doesn't have to pay you, but you get to learn, and what you learn from other statisticians in the field is priceless, I think. So I think that's one of the ways that we can really help bridge the gap, is bring more practical side of statistics into the theoretical aspects, and that would involve a collaboration between the CROs and universities.
I often get people reaching out to me, and they have, their PhD, their master's in biostatistics, and they're coming out of these really great schools across the country, and they're saying, hey, here's my CV, what can I do? And from my perspective as a recruiter, unfortunately, I'm thinking, I need you to have like real experience. I need you to work before I can get you a job, which kind of is, I can appreciate, it's really frustrating for them, right? They're asking for a job and I tell them I can't get them a job because they don't have a job. So I think this would be really, ideal for these universities to partner up with these AROs and these other companies to provide, this type of experience. And then it's a win-win, as you mentioned.
It's a win-win. Imagine, you have a candidate who's equally as qualified, and one of them can say, yes, I did do an internship here and I learned this, or I did volunteer there and I learned this. I did work on this particular project and this is what I learned. These are the tools that I use. This is why I used a particular model. I mean, that's huge, right? At least they have a leg up, I believe, a slight advantage over just graduating from school without any experience or any exposure to real life scenarios. So
a lot of kind of chat is going on LinkedIn is just going back to AI. I know AI is playing a bigger role in the hiring process, but sometimes like strong candidates are being overlooked because their CVs don't align perfectly with, the role or what, the kind of job description. So what are your thoughts on how AI impacts the hiring process?
I think right now we shouldn't rely solely on AI, because AI needs to be very flexible. They could miss out on a very good candidate just because some keywords were missing. I definitely think we still need to have recruiters looking at CVs. And I really think, I understand AI would make things faster, but I think when it comes to selecting the right candidate for a role, that's pretty serious. That's really important. And I still think we need more human involvement in that process. Otherwise, we're going to keep missing out on very strong candidates just because maybe their CVs weren't formatted in the right way, or maybe some keywords were missing. And I don't think anyone wins in that scenario.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, there's been multiple times where people send me their resumes and on paper it's not the best. But when you speak to them and you do a full pre-screen, you're like, this is literally the perfect candidate. They couldn't be more perfect even if they tried. So it's like having that conversation with the candidate and be like, hey, your resume does not showcase your experience. You need to change that. You need to change this. You need to change that. And candidates are very open to kind of receiving kind of feedback. And also just touching on the soft skills, AI is not going to be able to tell you if someone has good soft skills or not. They can take what you give them, a job description, and see if that person has it on their resume, but that's about it. So I think, yes, AI is good. Like I said, is like you said, sorry, it's not, we can't rely on it for now. But I know there's bigger companies out there that get thousands of resumes, so they think this is the easiest way for them.
Unfortunately, and it's not. I believe that I've heard many people say that their CVs were rejected and they can't, and it's not that they were rejected. AI rejected them. So I do think that this is one area we need to not skimp on the ability for our recruiting team to really examine and look at CVs and pick the right candidate. And even if, like you said, speak to the candidate. If the candidate's CV isn't up to par, you can then advise them on how they can fix it so that it reflects their true abilities, what they would need to showcase. AI is just not going to do that.
And with the rise of remote roles, fraudulence is becoming a growing concern, with some candidates misrepresenting their skill set. How do hiring managers like yourself navigate this challenge? And I'm curious, have you gone through this?
Absolutely. I think it's It's all over right now. I think it's become more widespread, unfortunately. But there are still things that which can be done to help ensure that you're speaking to the right candidate with the right skills. That you can give a technical test, right? If you perhaps trying to pretend that you are a SAS programmer and you're not, or a statistician, then there's some things you're just not going to know. Giving a technical test is one way that you can help screen. A face-to-face interview or a video call, you can also do some background checks. That's key, right? Make sure that they really went to the school that they went to, if there are job references, that they really did work at these places, really conducting references. That's something people who are fraudulent don't want to spend time producing references unless they're going to really get someone to fake their qualifications, which that's a lot of work for fraudulent people. So but just having, really interviewing technical skills, real life scenarios. If they've done a particular role, then they're definitely going to understand what to expect. They're not going to know that if they're just trying to fit.
You'd be surprised the lengths that, fraudulent candidates go through. We've seen it all. We've heard it all, I think, at this point with fake references. They know the buzzwords. They know enough to, go through a face-to-face interview and tell you these things. But I'm curious from your perspective, let's say you are on a video call with a candidate and you're asking, technical questions and they have a lot of years experience and they have good references and they've been recommended. And let's say they, all that stuff looks positive and you're asking them technical questions and they're saying, yeah, I've done that. Yes. Yeah. What is your perspective on those type of answers?
So these are, these simple yes, no answers definitely would not suffice. In an interview, you would, I think, have been able to demonstrate that they have utilized these technical skills is what I'm looking for. There is a difference in, oh yeah, I've used ProcMix too. Oh no, I use this ProcMix. This is the model that I used it for. This is what we were looking at. Here's all the dependent variables. These were the independent variables. This is what it said. There's a lot more that comes out from someone who has used, knows a particular technique or statistical scale versus someone who just says, oh yes, I've done it. So definitely looking for examples of where they have used a particular skill and maybe more than one example.
I know the market has become super competitive. I know there's been a lot of layoffs from bigger CROs. So there's a lot of people in the market. And there's also a lot of young biostatisticians entering the market. So someone like yourself, I think advice for young biostatisticians is going to be crucial. So how can young biostatisticians stand out in an increasingly competitive job market?
So I would definitely, if I was starting out as a young biostatistician now, I definitely would try to network with other statisticians working in the field. And it's easy, I would say, to meet statisticians. You can meet them on LinkedIn. You can meet them in the statistical associations. You can work with your school and ask them to, pair you up with statisticians in CROs. But definitely, I would want to know what the day-to-day life is of a biostatistician. I would definitely look at internships. That's one way to see what it's like to apply the knowledge that I've learned in the field, in school, and apply it in the field. So, going on to various conferences, there are many conferences which allows people to network, youth or pharmaceutical, definitely taking part in that. So if I was starting out new, these are some of the things that I would do, and remain active so that I could really understand exactly the practical nature of what I'm studying.
Yeah, I think people forget how important networking is, and I know networking has changed a lot, over the past few years, but I think LinkedIn is such a great tool that is underused by a lot of people, and just connecting with like someone like yourself, and just saying hi to you on LinkedIn. Hey, this is who I am. I'm going to be entering the job market. I'd love to just have a quick 5-minute conversation and just connect with different people on LinkedIn. People are so open to connecting on LinkedIn. Absolutely. And helping. And I think that's a new form of kind of networking. So always make sure that your LinkedIn is up to date. Make sure that your LinkedIn looks like it's used. It's not just a blank page where there's nothing. Connect with people in your industry. Make sure that you're connected with the top people in your industry and just people in biostatistics in general. And, have conversations with people like you said, because I think when it comes to like entering the job market, those are the people that are going to be hiring managers that are going to look at your resume. So you want to make sure that you have kind of that relationship with them for when the time
Absolutely.
comes.
So as we wrap up here, Ilfra, what's one piece of advice you'd offer to someone looking to become a leader in biostatistics as you have?
I would say focus on having excellent communication skills. In our line of work, it's necessary that we communicate across different teams, communicating with medical writers, scientists, doctors, programmers, data managers. It's very important that we are able to communicate the message statistically and ensure that across the board that we communicate effectively and we're conveying the right message. So definitely having good communication skills. And I would do whatever it took to make sure that I could communicate effectively. And if that means taking communication classes, if that means joining groups where it's necessary to speak, like Toastmasters, definitely would do that to make sure that I have the right skills. And in addition, I would try to remain up to date with all the new technologies and statistical technologies coming on. For example, we don't want to remain stagnant. And so keeping up with the latest trends, keeping up with the tools, AI, machine learning, real world evidence, seeing how our role works or mirrors data science and how we can learn some of the tools from data science and utilize it. I think these are the things that, would definitely help a young statistician stand out and grow in the field.
Thank you so much. Well, Dr. Ilfra, it was lovely having you on our podcast. Thank you so much for your time. I know our network is going to love all this advice that you've given them today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.